Okay.
Ha 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 ha. Howdy, neighbors. We are Sako and the Moon. And if you don't know us yet, we're two self-published horror authors that usually talk about craft and stuff on our podcast. But as a little aside, we are doing reviews from the perspective of horror, being a horror author, and also being an artist.
If you couldn't tell, we just ate. We just ate.
We just ate. Yeah.
We're still trying to wash down everything. And we're like, oh, it's time to go live. Let's just do the thing.
Oh yeah. No product placement. No sponsorship. Nothing like that. I just really like their dragon tea thing.
Which is exactly what we would say if we were sponsored by Taco Bell, which we could be sponsored by Taco Bell if Taco Bell wanted to sponsor us.
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. Taco Bell
like,
paying
hey,
us
Taco,
to say,
what are you eating today? I'm eating a chicken quesadilla that contains this thing and this thing and this stuff and this stuff. I'm like, oh wow, that is so great.
Let's not.
I need a brand new something taco that does something and has something else in it.
Well,
there's also what you'd be getting Taco Bell if you sponsor us.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is why we're not sponsored by anybody.
Is it?
Except ourselves. We're sponsored by ourselves. You want to sponsor support the show? Buy our stuff.
Buy our stuff.
She's got books and she's got art, and I've got book and hats and shit.
Yeah. And there's a Society 6 shop and all of that stuff.
Yeah. We don't need sponsorship. We have you guys. Buy our shit.
Buy our shit.
But let's get into what we're actually doing here, which is to review horror movies, and we have a dope-ass movie to review here because I fucking love it. I was going to tell you right now, I love this movie. Absolutely. There's nothing bad I can say about this movie. There might be a couple of things, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. We'll get to them as we get through the star system. Travel through the star system? Yeah, we can do that. I'm a space nerd. My name is Moon.
Adorable. Okay, so if you didn't catch our first episode, we use a 4-star system. The first star is that we.
You might want to tell them what movie we're reviewing first.
I guess I could. Or I could finish explaining what the rating system is, and then we'll talk about.
That they know it then. They figure it out. You know what? You're right. Go ahead. Just tell them.
Okay, so first star is production, second star is writing, third star is characterization, and the fourth star is theme. And we tear apart the movie. And they will get a star or not get a star per category. So the movie that we are doing, yeah, that at least starts the conversation, right?
Right.
So we are reviewing The Menu,
which was not a cool segue or hint because we were eating ahead of time. That was just. We can pretend like we did that on purpose, though.
I recommend, right off the bat, watching Chef's Table and then watching The Menu.
Interesting.
And it's so... It is an excellent segue in between fine dining and murder for the sake of fine dining.
As someone who loves to write and writes horror. I make film, also horror. Fun fact about me, I'm a culinary school dropout. So as a culinary school dropout, this movie, here, Moon, here's a perfect movie for you. Talk about it as much as humanly possible. And I have. Any opportunity I get to talk about the menu, I have, and I will. I've discussed it on at least one podcast before this, and my personal website has a review on this movie already. So I am ready to dive in to this mess whenever you're ready.
So I just saw the theatrical release poster, and I love it. As a designer and as someone who's seen the movie and all of that, it's perfect in every way.
There's
I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen, and then we'll talk about like who made it and stuff. Okay. So, oh, it's tiny. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Like on the, if you need help finding it, you can find it on their Wikipedia page.
Okay.
Or literally anywhere, because this is a flawless. This is I have like a produced copy of the script at home.
Nice.
And this is the cover. It's flawless.
It's flawless, both as a representation of the movie and also from a design standpoint. It is wonderful.
And this level of, like, if you were to like mentally associate fine dining with art and how a fine dining restaurant in a modern scape would look, that is exactly what this movie is. This is how it's filmed. This is what the set looks like. Oh, like I could talk all day about this movie. I really can.
Okay, well, we'll start tearing it apart here in a minute. So it's a comedy horror from the golden age of 2022's horror releases.
So long ago.
Directed by Mark Mylod and written by Seth Rice and Will Tracy.
Kudos, guys.
Kudos to all of you. Ralph Fiennes plays the chef. Anya Taylor-Joy, I believe, is the role of Margot.
Mm-hmm.
And Nicholas Hoult, I believe, is the
Tyler.
douche. Huh?
Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Tyler.
Tyler the douchebag.
Yeah.
Shout
out John Leguizamo.
And it's got John Leguizamo in an excellent role.
Fantastic.
Which might be closer to the truth than any of us care to admit.
I'll when we get to the casting part, I will tell you what I learned from doing Necro.
Okay.
Well, the first star, we're gonna dig into it. Our first star is about production. And our little subcategories is art direction, makeup, props, and cinematography. So
let's start with art direction.
I was going to start with cinematography.
Okay.
We both love this movie. I don't know what to tell you guys. If you can't tell, we're both excited to talk about it. But when you looking at the poster, which is why I wanted to start with cinematography. Oh, because you showed the poster. There's this level of just clean, modern look to the poster, right? And I think that's one of the things you were pointing out when you were talking about how perfect it is, especially in reference to a fine dining, like fine dining compared to fine dining. Like if you put all of fine dining in a row and judge them as if they were all the restaurants there were, the fine dining of fine dining is Hawthorne, which is the setting of this movie. The way they shot this whole thing, including how they do the highlights of the dishes, is very reminiscent of what we actually, not we, I don't do food production, but what they actually do when they're producing food shows. They use certain lighting, certain backgrounds, certain highlights of to show off the characteristics of the food on the plate before service. Fantastic. Some of the shots are just some of the close-up shots that they have of the cast at various times in this movie. So well timed, and I can tell you it's out of order. There are some of the smaller segments are out of order from the script, and the way they decided to shoot it makes so much more sense than it does on paper. So shout out to the director for understanding, no, this needs to go here and this needs to go here. And everybody else on this movie, because I'm just going to praise the entire cast and crew of this whole entire
every shot in the movie could be screen capped at any point and framed as a work of art.
That is so true.
Their director of photography was like really did the hell out of their job.
Like the camera, how do the kids say it now? The camera was cameraing, the director was directoring, the lenses were lensing, the foods were fooding, whatever else the kids are saying that repeats words and dumb shit.
Okay.
Like either way, like what we're really trying to say here is that the movie is shot beautifully.
The lighting and the color grade told the story in a sterile yet warm way. So you had like robotic servers and really emotive patrons.
Right. And that contrast is so incredible. Because when she says robotic, she means humans that are acting robotic. They are doing the task and nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. But while you have the servers who are also the cooks doing all that work, putting the food out and doing all the things, the opposite in the cast of characters that we have
are going through some kind of development.
We got like 6 tables. There's like a couple, there's 2 couples, there's a reviewer and her assistant, there's a movie star and his assistant. I don't know why I split my fingers like this. And then there's like 3 tech bros and then mom by herself. I don't know why I got the 6 in such a weird way. But there's like 6 little couples, and we see them all interacting amongst themselves, and then how they interact with each other. And it is such an extreme dynamic from the cast from the kitchen. But looking like at the art, I mean the costumes, the culinary design.
Every character was made up and costumed perfectly to the point where they were both relatable and not at the same time. Just
I forget the name of the chef, but there was like a world-renowned chef that was used as a consultant, Dominique Crin, I believe it was, and she was their consultant on set. She was the one to ensure that the kitchen looked like a Michelin star,
cutthroat kitchen,
looked like a legit kitchen. It operated and functioned.
Or Hell's Kitchen. That's the one, Hell's Kitchen.
Because it's a very open concept. The dining room is here. There's a small partition, and then there's the kitchen. And this one helps to create an openness to the set. Nothing feels closed. Like you're indoors. Right. Like you're isolated on an island, and on this island is this restaurant, and in this restaurant it feels wide open. Despite the cool dark colors of the painted walls versus the big glass windows, and there's just so much. Like when you hear about the menu, if you were to go sight unseen, it's like, oh, there's a horror movie called The Menu. Everybody's first thought is some cannibalism is going to find a place in this movie.
That's in the writing.
Right. But
yeah.
That is. But my point of that is the moment you start to watch this movie, you're like, this is not going to be a cannibal movie. This is it looks too refined to be a cannibal movie. And to me, and maybe this comes from after having watched it as many times as I have, but it doesn't look like a horror movie at all. And I think the horror is in the detail. Of course, we'll get into that when we get into the writing, but those details are visually told in the set design, this choice of color, and color, like from the white gray walls to the dark paint here. Just like any fine dining restaurant, they're going to pay very close attention to how this color contrasts with this color. As you do with anything with art, graphic design, you would know. Contrasting of colors that work together, super, super important to make something feel like it naturally works.
I feel like they did it quite on purpose. The kitchen was done in cold light and the dining room was done in warm light.
Yeah, and I think a real dining room would be that way.
And I think it was very much so done on purpose, very calculated.
This whole movie,
the right amount of both.
This whole movie is calculated. That's probably one of the better words you can use to describe the menu. Calculated. And again, some of that I'll refer to that word when we get into the writing, because there's so much intricate parts when it comes to the writing and when we get into the actual menu.
Is there anything else you want to say about the production?
Everything else, but no, I think I'll sum it up by saying this: the people in charge of this set, the people in charge of these props, the people in charge of this wardrobe,
and the setting, yeah,
all of it, the set dressing, the whole prop, like they cared about this movie. And when a filmmaker gives a damn and truly cares about the work that they're putting into it, it is obvious. And it is so obvious with this movie. It's one of the most elegant looking horror movies ever, maybe. Possibly ever.
I'll give you that.
I cannot off the top of my head think of a movie that aesthetically looks more really like you scratch your head. How is that? Anyway, with thumbs. We're gonna start counting your accidental thumbs.
Yeah. It's a drinking game. Every time it does a thumbs up, like
drink. By accident. Let me get my water.
So we should. Okay, so I think we both give it a star for production alone.
Oh yeah, easy.
Right.
Easy.
Okay, let's move on to writing. Okay, so dialogue.
Okay.
I say watch this movie twice. Literally every line in this movie has a double meaning, and the subtext is delicious. There is like an underbelly to everything that is said. And as trivial and surface level as it might seem, and you might not catch it the first time around, but you'll definitely catch it the second or third.
Oh yeah, and this I'll say it once, I'll say it again. Like every horror movie deserves to be watched at least twice. with the exception of the mousetrap.
We'll talk about the mousetrap next week, but yeah.
It's almost a crime to talk about that movie right after this one, but I digress. One line in particular that will get you. This is just an example of how you had to watch this so carefully, and then like you don't even put it together right away, because unlike most movies where a line that's placed as to lead into something else or with a double entendre, they spell it out for you later on. This never gets spelled out. None of them do. You have to
None of
just
them
kind of
do.
get it. So, for example, when Tyler and Margot are waiting for the boat to arrive to take them to the island, she's smoking, and Tyler tells her, "Hey, don't smoke. It'll ruin your palate for tonight, and then you won't properly taste any of the food." She relents and says, "That's fine. It's your dime." This is right after we find out that the cost of this meal is $1,250 per person. It deserved to be spelt out. $1,250 doesn't cover. $1,250 per person, and they don't seat singles, so you have to go in pairs. So you're paying no less than $2,500. Excuse me, $2,500. And so when you hear that line, you're thinking, all right, he's paying for this meal. It's fine. No one get, okay, cool. You eventually find out that he had a previous date. That date dumped him. He hired Margot as we'll say an escort. He hires Margot to go to this event with him. And that
As
is
his
what was
date.
that
As
was
his date. Yeah.
right.
But you don't find that out until they get to the island, which
Right.
I think is beautiful.
Everything is timed so perfectly. And like I said, there are things I've actually, like I said, I like to sit with the script and watch a movie and then read the script with the movie. And in most cases, it'll go straight down page to page, with the exception of maybe a part that got cut in production.
Mhm.
This movie, however, some of the smaller segments, like we're talking to this table, we're talking to this table, we're talking to this table, they are in different orders in the script. So it really is hard to follow. But when you got the sections out, it still works. And all of the dialogue is so well written for the characters, and
Mhm.
all of the characters are so different from each other. There's almost almost no two characters that are alike, even at the same table together. Even the three tech bros have different personality traits. You know, one of them is sort of like this brash dude, like, yeah, man, I'm in trouble, man. I'm in trouble at home. My girlfriend's mad at me because I cheated. Of course, it's my fault. And that's him. The other guy is like, hey, man, you know what? We're making money. Everything's cool. No big deal. Cool, whatever.
That is getting into once we get into characterization and
Right. But this isn't to highlight that. This is just to show the difference in the characters, in the writing, and how the dialogue is reflected differently on each character. Even when the people are grouped together, you're thinking,
Mhm.
oh, these three tech bros are going to be very much alike, and they're going to be almost interchangeably, spitting the dialogue out, and they're not.
And they're not. They're
Mm.
very much so their own characters.
Right, and that's what I was highlighting. It's
Yeah.
like, even in this section where they're clearly their own character, they're all working together. They all work in the same spot. They're almost coming across. They're from the same connection, but the three different guys, and the dialogue reflects that. The married couple, which after a while, you and I both can probably tell you, couples after they've been together for a while kind of start to sound alike, talk alike, do things alike. You can lose your mind. Hashtag Patty Duke. And no one is old, and nobody watching this show is old enough to remember that show. But even the married couple who've been together forever, they're celebrating an anniversary, they're not alike, and they've got a hell of a dynamic between them and then them with Margot. Crazy. But all the dialogue is distinct. Everything is just so fantastic from a writing standpoint.
The slow burn is beautiful. And the first plot point is such a shock that it is quite literally no turning back. Right? So once the deaths start, it snowballs. It's like all the way to the end.
Yeah. Because there's a level of odd, right? When we get there and there's a tour of the island, because everybody who works there lives there. And so everything is kind of farm to table, but on this island. So, and that's cool. Like farm to table is a term now that everyone's genuinely familiar with. So we can say farm to table. We can demonstrate farm to table. They take care of all their stuff right then and there on that island. That's cool. And then they get into they start talking about the beef, which I'm going to highlight for a second. The beef in the smokehouse and how it's aged for a certain period of time. And if it goes past that time, the bacteria might develop, which might kill you a certain way. And Elsa, the like maitre d', she is the one giving something like that. Excellent actress. She does.
Hong Chow.
She is so good in this damn movie. Like instantly go find all the movies she's in. Do it. Like if she acts like this in anything else. Side note: I did see her in The Whale. Oh. She plays such a stoic person in this movie. Watching her get so emotional in The Whale is contrast, but you should see these two different ends of her acting ability. Fantastic. She's an excellent actress.
Yeah, she needs supporting actress awards for.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen her in The Whale, maybe not a horror movie, but go watch The Whale. It's worth the watch. She's leading this tour, and she highlights certain things, and you're like, okay, that's kind of an odd thing to say, but you already know you're watching a horror movie, so you don't think too much about it. But I did want to highlight that beef in that story for a later part. We go into all the stuff, and it's just like this menu is very special, very curated by Slowick, and things just seem kind of weird in this is a rich guy, rich famous chef, weird recipes kind of thing, a bread dish with no bread, that kind of weird shit. You're like, okay, that's odd. Then you get to the mess. And when you get to the mess is when shit starts to flip.
That's your turning point.
And it happens so suddenly. It happens so like abruptly compared to how everything else has happened so far.
That's that slow burn that we were talking about.
Yeah, because you almost forget that you're watching a horror movie. Until this part, it's so Food Network that you almost forget I should be watching Shudder. You think you're watching Food Network until this dish, like the third or fourth dish. And you get to the mess, and homeboy tells the story, and then puts a gun in his mouth and pulls the trigger. And you're like, oh fuck, I am watching a horror movie. Now things are starting to go. We have now put some gas into the car. We're ready to go. I like how long that took. And it's enough to lull you in, and just kind of keep you here, and then bam, hits you here. And we kind of trail back, and you're like, okay, some weird shit's going to happen from here on out, and that's when Slowick starts just getting cynical.
Yeah,
and it's so sinister in that aspect. It was the writing and the pacing of this was excellent. It was just fantastic because you have to write that in, and you have to make those notes. And I've literally seen it in writing, and It's just fantastic.
It is. My last note on the plot is thank you so much for not being about cannibalism. Thank you for that.
It was so easy.
At
So
any
easy.
point, there was no mention, nothing even hinting at
Not even a little bit.
cannibalism, which was
And like I said, like when you see a horror movie called The Menu, it's your natural first thought. Sight unseen, that's where your brain should go. Where it should go.
Mhm.
If someone said, "Hey, write me a horror movie called The Menu," I can't even say that I would probably not have included cannibalism. I probably would have had cannibalism. Might have been subtle, but I probably would have even put cannibalism in there. It's an easy way to go. It's almost default. And it took someone to really appreciate fine dining and find out the where the fear and pretentiousness comes from, how that just that level of pretentiousness that comes with money, uh, status.
And I think we'll get it more into that when we start getting into the theme. But so characterization.
So we're giving it a star if you couldn't tell.
Yes,
So it
a
gets
star for writing. A star for writing.
Absolutely.
The casting.
Absolutely flawless.
Absolutely flawless. Brilliant. So John Leguizamo is credited as movie star in the credits.
That's what the role is.
But his name is revealed when they check in.
Mm-hmm.
Is like George something.
Don't even remember what it is. I focus more on the script, and the script literally has him in there as movie star.
Movie star.
The character's name is movie star, but he has a actual name that is used when the reservations are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you were midpoint. I thought you had more.
That is also the star point, I think, was the maitre d' whispering, you will
eat less than you desire and more than you deserve.
Yes, that.
So there's a part of the movie where the tech bros. So to understand where the tech bros are standing, they work for the guy who's the investor over the island. The guy who owns the island has a company, and the tech bros work for that company. So they feel like they're in with the bigger boss. So they feel like they have, they're in. We're all working for the same guy. You should treat us more special. So I think it's in the bread dish where they want bread. They're like, hey, we get this concept, bullshit, but give us some bread. And they're like, no. It's like, okay. Did she say no? She said no. Do you know who we are? She's like, yeah, I do. It's like, so you know who we work with? Like, no, you work for. You work for that guy. You don't work with him. You work for him. It's like, right, we all work for him. So, do us a solid. She's like, no. He's like, oh, okay. And then she's like, let me help you with that. She goes to fix his napkin. She whispers in the guy's ear, and she says, you will eat less than you desire and more than you deserve. And if that's not one of the most boldest, you're going to die tonight kind of lines, like you should automatically know that from that point on, you need to shut the fuck up. Nothing like that is the most badass thing that you can as many times I rewatched this movie last night, right? Just because if you're going to do a movie review show, you should probably rewatch the movie right around the time you're going to film. And I was texting Sako, and I was just like, I just texted that line to her. I'm just like, gangsta line.
That is gangsta line.
It is. Imagine if you're sitting somewhere and someone whispers that in your, like, the maitre d' walks up to you and is like, says anything close to that. It's like, all right, you know what? I might want to check now if possible. But let me ask you, how did you feel about the casting of the main couple? We're talking Anya Taylor-Joy and Nick Holt as Margot and Tyler. How did you feel about that casting?
I thought it was brilliant. I've met people like Tyler, and he fits the stereotype beautifully. And
I remember telling the Necro Boys, shout out to James Sabata and Dr. Don Guillory. We have to highlight that now because we got a doctorate. I told them, I'm like, I went to culinary school with guys like Tyler. Mind you, we are entry-level first quarter culinary school. And there are guys who are just like, oh, yes, this is a sign of spinach, and this is I'm like, I'm in the next group over from them. I'm just looking at them like, fuck is this guy? You're in high school 6 months ago. Calm down. Breathe. Like, chill out. Like, it's bok choy. Like, we got it. We get it. It's bok choy. Okay, calm down.
Calm your tits.
And I'm not, I have no way of remembering this because this shit was from like January 2003. But to my memory, his name might have actually been Tyler or Josh, because I know everyone who knows me knows I hate Josh. Sorry to anyone out there named Josh, but like I have a bad history with Joshes.
So, how do we feel about like the consistency or the evolution of the characters?
There is a hell of a trip that they go on through the course of this adventure. Slowick has a plan. He's out for these particular people for a particular reason. With the exception of Margot, who you have to understand that, not you, but everyone who's watching this who hasn't seen the movie yet, Margot was not the original guest, right? She was not Tyler's original guest, so they did not prepare for her. And as you go to watch this movie, you realize that everybody was picked for this night very specifically. So half of this there's a subplot about Slowick saying, "Hey, you don't belong here. You're not part of this menu. You shouldn't be here. You're kind of screwing things up. Like you're kind of ruining what I got
throwing
going
a
on."
monkey wrench.
Yeah. And she doesn't quite get it, but she gets it later on. Oh boy, did that hit. But so with the exception of her, everyone is there for a very specific purpose. So they come in thinking very selflessly, and the ride that Slowick takes them on, he eventually showcases how bad things are happening tonight because you've ruined what cooking should be for me. I got into cooking. I got into culinary arts because I loved to cook. I loved making things and bringing joy to other people through food. And now, because of all of this and everything else going on that you guys have caused, I'm not happy anymore. You've taken the joy away from the one joy I had.
Well, that's the third plot point, right? So
then, but this is what's driving the night. So as he's highlighting this throughout the night, meal after meal, segment after segment, eventually everyone starts to feel guilty. Almost. They go from being very pretentious and self-centered to feeling guilty and digging into themselves and kind of doing like a review. And by the end, These motherfuckers, the ones that are left, they've accepted their fate to the point where they end the movie with they're about to be caught on fire and they're about to be set ablaze, and they're like, "Thank you, chef. Thank you, chef." I'm like, yo, like,
So
that
that
ride,
mhm.
crazy, man. It's crazy.
That warm yet sterile cinematography tells us that the technical precision of the servers stand in sharp contrast to the very human yet spoiled patrons, all in their own way, right? So their complication, what they want versus what they need, differs from character to character, and
Yeah.
it evolves throughout the story for each of those characters. So the oh, I read the wrong part. Every character except maybe the Cucks stick to their self-preservation in their own way, and it changes the way that they problem solve as well as the way they handle stressful situations.
That is true. Well, both parts are true, but yeah, that's true to this part. Yeah. The servers have accepted their fate prior to the
Preemptively, yeah.
prior to the event of the movie. So you don't see an evolution in them, but that resolve and their stoic nature becomes catalyst, becomes catalyst to the rest of the casting and how they are elevating. Because you're looking at, once it's revealed that, hey, everyone here is dying. Once this is revealed, uh, nothing shifts in the kitchen. I think that becomes an example to the patrons, that they're like, oh, these people they mean it. Everyone here is willing to die in this moment for this purpose. We're not getting out of this. Even at the part where they think they're getting out of this and they try to escape. There's a couple
Yes.
parts of the movie where they think they got out. Yeah,
And it's just part of the show. Yeah.
they'll get out. It's great.
Yeah, super good. Okay, so POV. It's mostly from Margot's point of view, but we see each conversation separately, even if they were supposed to be happening at the same time.
Yes. And I think that's when you look at, you have like a room of 12 people, essentially, right? They're all essentially in one room together. It's very easy to take one character, let's say Margot, and just tell the whole movie from her interactions with Tyler, her interactions with Slowick, her interactions with Elsa, and how she will eventually interact with the other characters. There's lots of places in the writing where you can have her talk to the movie star, talk to the tech bros, talk to the Lee Brants, that's the married couple. There's actually a perfect time when they could have talked, and a great interaction when they finally do associate. And I want to highlight one of the Lee Brant interactions here in a sec. As easy as that would have been, the choice was that you are seeing this movie from almost everybody's individual point of view. I would
Mm-hmm.
say, like, every person has a different viewpoint on their table mates and the restaurant.
That's how I feel when I say that the characters are so relatable and yet not.
Right, because there are a level of
Like,
like prestige that it's not me. It ain't my pockets. That's for sure.
mm-hmm.
But you you get what it's like to be in a marriage or in a relationship where things just kind of fall into a space of normality where nothing else really happens and everything just kind of as exuberant as an experience this is supposed to be to come to Hawthorne, you find out the married couple is there for their like 12th time or whatever. So it's nothing to them. It's just a thing. Um, Tyler is so caught up in trying to learn this and learn that and look like he's prestigious, look like he's on that level of stoic, that he's so not stoic, but stoic is very stoic. So I always get those. I always slip up. But even from Tyler's point of view, we've all at some point tried to impress somebody else. Got into something because someone we knew was into it, realized it really wasn't, that we didn't really know shit about it, no matter how much we tried. Ask any ex-girlfriend of mine when it comes to wrestling. They try so hard and get so far. But they couldn't tell you the difference between Stone Cold Steve Austin and the Ringmaster Steve Austin, who technically is the same person, but the characters are so different. But that's what I mean. They tried really hard. You can see that Tyler tries really hard to get Slowick's approval and to impress Margot with what his knowledge on shit is. But when he's actually presented with like, oh, well, why don't you get back here to the kitchen? You know all the flavors. You know what all the equipment's called. You have this equipment at home. Show us something. Come on, Tyler. Show us something. And Tyler can't do shit. Homie couldn't boil hot dogs if he tried. He'd burn the water. Like that's how bad of a chef Tyler is. He'd burn the water boiling hot dogs. And this is my point. There's something, even in how high level these people are, that at their core, they're regular people. And anybody who has any level of experience in nearly anything can find somebody amongst this cast that they're like, that's me, or that's my cousin, or my best friend acts just like that, or if my mama had money, she'd be this guy.
Yeah, well put. So between the casting, which was Ralph Fiennes as Slowick, and
Anya Taylor-Joy as Margot, Nick Holt as Tyler, John Legwood fucking Zamo, who apparently was doing an impression of Steven Seagal.
Yeah, Hong Chow as Elsa. The maitre d'. It follows a foodie and his date traveling to a remote island to eat at an exclusive restaurant while the chef has prepared a lavish menu but reveals shocking surprises throughout the meal.
That's pretty much the gist of it.
Yeah. So I think between the casting and the consistency, the evolution, and the POV characterization gets a star.
Easy.
Okay, now for the fun part, the theme. Okay, so what's the message? What do you think the message is?
It's really weird because I know that as creatives, and whether it's literary arts, visual arts, or culinary arts, it's an art form, and we do it because we love it. I love to write. My life surrounds writing. I'll die with a pen in my hand. Hopefully not anytime soon. But you and I can relate, and most people who watch our show, they can relate to the importance of enjoying our art. And one of the things I've always heard people say, and you may have heard this as well, don't turn your hobby into a job.
I have monetized all but one.
And there's a reason why there's one, isn't there? What is the reason for the one?
Because my husband said that I should not monetize all of my hobbies.
And the reason behind that,
I don't know.
because if you monetize all your hobbies become jobs, and then you have no hobbies. We do our hobbies because we find joy in our hobbies, right? That's something that it's an integral part of us, and that is essential to like true like homegrown happiness. Like you can be happy hanging around with this person, have this happy, fulfilling thing in your world. But as far as like us being happy with ourselves, like alone in the room, having some sense of joy, something we can sit in a room by ourselves and do and put a smile on our face. And the moment you start to monetize that and your hobby becomes sponsored and now it's your livelihood and you need to do the thing in order to pay the rent and keep the lights on, you can no longer do it just for fun, right? Because you're too busy working at it. And that's what happens to Slowick. Slowick talks about how he doesn't have any joy anymore. The movie star, we're always talking about John Leguizamo's character. He is like, after all this work I was doing, I finally had one day off. One day. And I watched your movie, calling Dr. Sunshine. And he's like, I hated it. I hated it. I hated you in it. And the movie star's like, well, that's not my fault. I didn't write it. I just acted. I didn't direct it. And it's like, right, but you lost your passion. You were just doing the movie, just do the movie. And you hear that kind of in the conversation he has with his assistant earlier in the movie. So you know that he didn't put all of his everything into the movie. He didn't enjoy doing it. He didn't have that same fire and flame. And that took fire and flame away from Slowick in watching it, the time he put into watching this movie on his one day off. And to summarize, using those examples, you have to make sure you maintain your joy and don't let anyone else steal it. Because that's what turns Slowick around in the end.
KonMari method with people.
Sure, we'll go with that. Yeah. But like what ends up, so Anya Taylor-Joy's character Margot lives. Here's how. She sends back her food. He's like, you're not happy? Why not? It's like, I'm still hungry. Can't tell a chef you're still hungry. It's like, well, what do you want? It's like, I want a cheeseburger. Not some deconstructed bullshit. I want just a good cheeseburger. Like, I can do that. So he makes a cheeseburger. She found out earlier in the movie that he used to be like a line cook in a diner. He was as happy as he could be was being a line cook in a diner making cheeseburgers. So when he got back to doing something he loved, it was a find joy in his hobby again. And that's when he was able to let Margot leave. Why everybody else didn't order a cheeseburger all of a sudden, I don't know. But that's what you realize. You start to see the impact of people who do services like cooks or call girls. When it stops being something cool to do and it just becomes a job and they get drained of all their happiness. So like, don't let that happen. At least keep one hobby without monetization. Like
I guess so. That was not what I gathered from the message of the movie. Don't shit where you eat and stay humble.
So that's interesting because I looked at my message from Slowick's viewpoint, right? And I think you looked at it from the impact of the cast or the rest of the patrons. And I can see where both are valid messages.
Absolutely.
You paused a long time. Either you glitched or you disagree.
A bit of both.
Okay, well, how do you disagree?
I don't disagree.
Well, you said a little bit of both.
Oh, I said a little bit of both to your previous statement.
Oh, okay.
So I mentioned the tone already, but the chef's table meets Saw. Kind of.
That's that Saw might be Saw's too much for. I get where you're coming up with like the games and the challenges. There's some games and challenges, but I think Saw is too much in that torture porn direction. And this isn't torture porn. This is vengeance in a very clean modern fashion.
I
Like
suppose so.
it's revenge with it's elaborate revenge, but it's not super gory. Like one of the challenges they
It's
want to
just
give,
gory enough.
it's gory enough to still count as a horror movie, not a thriller.
Yeah.
And I could still, if someone says the menu is not a horror movie, it's a thriller, I would not argue with it. I disagree, but I wouldn't argue. It's minimalist enough because of its aesthetic that it could qualify as a thriller as opposed to horror. But like I said, I'm not going to argue with you being wrong. That's fine. Because there's something. It's in the subtlety of this movie. Everything is so subtle, you know.
And subtext, like I said before, is delicious. I love subtext in my media.
Yeah,
I really do.
Everything holds such a deeper meaning there, and looking at the characters, particularly when they get there, they sit down and they start eating. The mom's there. His mom is there. She's a drunk. She's quiet in the corner. So that's
Slowick's mom.
Yeah.
By the by. Yeah.
And then you have the reviewer who discovered Slowick and her assistant who is her yes man. And if you ever watch any of these culinary shows and it's like, yes, hold on. Yes, yes, there's a slight hint of, you can taste the lime in the water still. It wasn't quite filtered out. Yes, yes, you can tell that it was heated ever so briefly. The slight taste of like that bullshit. That was the reviewer, and that's the assistant. And how it starts here with them, and they eventually taper down, because what you eventually learn as he highlights each person and their offenses to him, they are forced to look within themselves, right? She looks at, during the Taco Tuesday meal, which sounds delicious, by the way. All of these are real dishes that you can do. Don't do Tyler's bullshit, and I would probably have less blood in the mess if I were you. But all the other dishes are actual dishes. Like these are real dishes. You really have. You can eat them as they were. And she is confronted with a bunch of restaurants that she reviewed that closed because she reviewed them negatively, and the impact that she's had on that culinary space, not as a chef, but as a reviewer. And she goes in and she's like high and mighty and about her bullshit taste and criticizing a broken emulsion and whatever. And it's that level of bullshit that have shattered other people's dreams. and she's confronted with that very abruptly. And there's a part where she's, all the ladies are sitting at a table while the men are doing a challenge, and one of the female chefs shows up, and she's like, "Oh, this dish is amazing! You made this. This is great. I could help you with your own restaurant if you wanted." Trying to get her to let them out, and she's like, "There was a time when that would have meant something to me."
Mm-hmm.
And it's in that moment she realizes, the reviewer realizes, I don't have power here. My word usually means everything. My opinion and what I can say to impact you used to mean something, and now it means absolutely nothing. And that's how quickly her power goes. And it's beautiful in that forces them to reflect on their own negatives and their own pretentiousness. And by the end of it, they've all overcome. If this was Saul, John Kramer would have opened the door and let them all out. Because they all come to terms in the end.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But the s'more and s'more you think about it, the last dish in the ending was s'mores. That's why they were all caught on fire. That's what the bad joke is. But the more and more you think about it, it was not so much of overcome yourself and learn your lesson to be a better person. It's come to terms with a reason why you're going to die very brutally. Like, just answer for your sins.
I guess it depends on karma works.
Karma works.
Right. That's the moral of the story, is karma works.
Yeah, that's a really good way of summing that up. You know what really fucks me up about the ending? There's a part before he catches everybody on fire and blows the building up where he collects the check and everybody fucking pays. And I'm like, hold on a second. Everyone here is about to die and they know it. But we're still going to give them a gift bag that they're not going to be able to go through and enjoy. And we're going to charge their card. That's fucked up. It's like, I'm going to die and you're going to die, but I'm going to get that money from you. I still cook this food. I'm going to kill you afterwards, but I still made this meal. I'm going to get my check.
So, backstory. Was there a backstory?
There's Slowick's backstory, where
there was also Margot's backstory.
Yeah.
Which is threaded throughout the story, dropped as hints of,
it's told in part.
As they explain who she really is. No trauma dumping, no long ass exposition, just excellent storytelling.
The beautiful part about not having a Margot sits down and says, when I was a young girl, kind of a loss of 5 minutes, let's call it what it really would be. Maybe a loss of 5 minutes. You have Slowick recognizing something in her. And it's like, I know a service worker when I see one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And have you ever been to a bar on service industry night? Like, that's that kind of recognition. Service industry night and a bar is where a bunch of other bartenders and servers go to a bar serving bartenders and servers. And they all kind of relate to each other. It's a very, very light kind of atmosphere. They all kind of get it, because they all do the same thing. They just get it. If you've ever worked a job where you meet somebody, a complete stranger who used to do the same job as you guys instantly like bond, because it's like, oh, that struggle, I've had that struggle. You've had that struggle? I've had that struggle. We're best friends now.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a writer and you ever formatted your own book, welcome to that struggle. You're part of a club. Like, we get you. Like, I had a buddy of mine work on a book shortly after I worked on mine. I was like, dude, watch formatting. If you need help with it, let me know. I was like, nah, man, I'll get it. It's fine. It's cool. And then he comes back and goes like, dude, I am so sorry. Like,
have a professional do it.
Like, I'm so sorry that I just missed what you said about formatting. Like, I told your ass. Now, if you can get a professional to format your book, you should probably do that. But Can you do it on your own? You can. You'll hate it. You will absolutely hate it the first time you do it. Off the
You
cuff.
also won't know all the graphic design rules in which you are supposed to follow when
Yeah.
you are formatting. And I bet you didn't follow any of those rules.
I didn't follow a single. I didn't know. I learned today that there were rules. I didn't follow any rules. But my
Yeah.
book's formatted and it's out and available on Amazon. But no, like, so when he recognizes this in Margot, he's like, so what was it? And she was just like, it's this, you know. So I'm an escort. We'll just say she's an escort. And it's like, is that how you know Mr. Liebrandt? It's like, yeah. Like, you, I don't need to hear details. I get it. I get it. And it's one of those things where it's just like, I relate, you relate, we ain't got to talk about it. We get it. And then you hear just enough. It's like when you hear a person's story, you don't have to hear their whole.
Like you hear her real name, and
Harry.
yet
Right.
everybody blows her off and continues to call her Margot.
Right. But it's the same things. Like, you know, if you were to find out that my real name was Marcus, it's not. It really is Dewan. But if you were to hear my name was Marcus, like, you'd still call me Dewan because you're used to calling it. Like when people who meet me as Moon, they call me Moon, and they have a hard time calling me Dewan. And people who always knew me as Dewan have a hard time transitioning to call me Moon.
I
So
have my government name and my pen names, and I don't go by my government name.
Right. I
don't.
don't even know it. I don't even know it. It's she's Sako to me. And but that's kind of the thing. If her government name was Ashley or something, I'm not going to turn around and call her Ashley. She's going to be Sako to me. Like, I'll be like, oh, your name is Ashley. Cool. So Sako, when are we going to do the show? And that's just kind of how that. So I understand why they learn her name is Aaron, but they still call her Margot. There's not much of the movie left after that anyway. Because I think Slowick's outside and Elsa's outside. The guys are gone when it gets revealed. So it's fine. Most of the people who are going to talk to her interact with her. They just don't even call her by name at that point. But it's one of those things. The people who get it. And there's just so much. Like, we could sit here and probably talk another 20 minutes on theme, tone, and the energy, the vibe that you get from the movie. Trying to look up to see what the third part of this category was. Backstory.
Yeah,
like everybody, every character.
We already talked about it for 30 minutes. So
essentially, but like every character has a backstory, and it's you have to watch this movie so many times.
I say theme gets a star.
It easily gets a star. And if you sit there, if you're gonna watch this movie, as we wrap this up, sit down, turn off put your phone down, close the blinds and windows. Probably grab a snack because you're gonna want to eat. Get a cheeseburger. Just trust me on this one. Trust me on this one. You will, if you don't already, by the end of this movie, you will want a cheeseburger. Have a cheeseburger waiting for you. Like, DoorDash it halfway through. Have it waiting for you. You're gonna want a cheeseburger when this movie is done. You will appreciate simple food, just well-made food by the end of this movie. Have no distractions. Focus on this movie. Follow the story. Follow the characters. Listen to all the different parts and players as they're moving amongst each other on this chessboard. It's such a beautiful thing. And once you've learned it all, watch it again. Like Sako said.
And listen to the subtext. Yeah.
And then like just start like, okay, so if this character is like this, I bet
foreshadowing. The foreshadowing was done so well. Yeah.
So there is one thing before we wrap this up. I have to ask you, and this is required of anyone talking about this movie.
Oh.
What do you think the ending means? What do you think happens at the end? So on paper, here's what we see. Margot gets her food. She takes one bite of it, enjoys it, says, my eyes were too hungry. I ordered too much. I'm going to get this to go. She pays her $10 and she leaves, gets on a boat and drives away. As right before the restaurant explodes, the boat stops. She gets out and she eats her cheeseburger.
She finally gets her meal, which she hadn't eaten up to that point.
Yeah. So how do you feel about the ending? And then when you give me your answer, I'll tell you why it's such a big deal.
I felt like, yeah, final girl, yet again. There's a K.M. Wyland post that she put up recently. Apparently she's done this elsewhere as well. But the character could have just as well been male, and it would have worked just as well.
I agree with 95% of that. Yeah.
Strong woman trope is getting tired, and while it was good to see her get away, like that's your feel good moment is when she's eating her cheeseburger. That's essentially the finality. Like that gave her agency back, was her getting that cheeseburger and enjoying that cheeseburger on the deck of the boat and not burning to death in a s'more.
That she wasn't supposed to die in. That night was not designed for her. Remember,
Right.
that's the big thing. It wasn't designed for her. Now, the reason why I asked this is because every time I've talked to somebody about this movie, and we actually went through it kind of at length when we did this on Necro, not everyone thinks she lives. Everyone thinks that there have been some fan theories that she actually dies at the end of this movie. That she didn't actually properly escape. Some people attribute the cheeseburger being cooked to medium, and because of the mentioning of the bacteria in the beef at the smokehouse. So now, I don't subscribe to this theory, but this was a popular theory once the movie came out, that they made such a big deal of talking about, if this beef ages this long, then so all this bad stuff will happen. And Slowick uses that to his advantage to kill his last person, just not in the restaurant. That is not the case. Because if you think back to that scene, she says, don't touch the proteins. They haven't matured yet.
Mm-hmm.
Which means none of those in the smokehouse will be at that 180 something day time frame to kill her in the beef. So
Right.
wouldn't be a thing. Others say that the boat was sabotaged and that's why it stops. That the boat ran out of gas or it was sabotaged and that's why she stops in the middle of the water as opposed to just going back to land. I also dispute that argument because she's not upset. If someone was just about to kill me in a room full of 10 other people or so, and I get out, and then all of a sudden my one boat to safety just dies on me, I'm going to be slightly panicked.
I don't know, maybe.
I would. I'd be a little concerned.
I think she was concerned for most of the movie, and her exit from the restaurant, I think, shows the trepidation and relief at the same time
Right, which
of
would
being
probably
able to
be
leave and finding the boat and getting the fuck out of there.
that would be reignited in my view the moment that it stopped in the ocean. Because like, okay, then what really is next?
I think she purposely stopped it.
I agree. I think she purposely stopped it. But there are all these fan theories, and I'm always down to hearing fan theories and potential. And sometimes movies have interesting fan theories. Apparently, there are a lot of fan theories going on right now about Back to the Future. That's a conversation I need to have.
That's a different.
No, that's a whole different thing. That's. But my point was, as old as that movie is, people are still coming up with weird fan theories, and I love to hear them about horror movies, sci-fi movies, all the movies, because it's interesting how I can watch a movie and interpret it one way, and you can watch the same movie and interpret it completely different. Like we had two different themes because we looked at the message from different aspects of the difference of the characters in the movie.
Right.
And I love those kind of conversations. Why we're doing this.
Indeed. Thank you for joining me, and thank you, audience, for joining us for talking about all the spoilers in the menu,
So good.
done in 2022, which was the golden age of horror movies, I think.
It was a damn good year. We did Barbarian last week, and that was also released in 22. It was a good year for horror.
It was a good year for horror. You might want to see last week's episode on Barbarian, or you can hang out on this channel and see an interview with horror author Sandy Lender, who is also a booktuber, and we're going to talk about what the heck that means.
Sandy
So, links will be Friday at 5 p.m. And we'll catch you guys on the other side.